Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, senior editor at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for another episode of the Steelers Preview. And you might be looking at your screen if you're watching us live on Facebook or YouTube and saying, where's the third wheel? He'll be here. Bryan Anthony Davis will be joining us shortly. In the meantime, it's just myself, Dave Schofield, the editor of BTSC. What's up, Dave?
Oh, not much, Jeff. I'll see if I can keep myself nice and calm tonight.
I was going to say, last time you were on YouTube, I think you were doing a scorched earth impersonation, if that's the right word.
I couldn't listen back to myself with that. I'm like, I can't do it. So I don't really know how bad it was.
I have to be honest. I never watch YouTube videos. I listen to all of our audio. So I listened to it on audio. And it didn't sound that bad. Like, I felt like we've had worse rants, but maybe it was worse in the visual. Nonetheless,
I don't know.
Here we are with another Steelers.
You'd have to look at me. That's part of the problem. So.
But I'm pumped. Okay, we're here to talk about the Detroit Lions and Week 10 at Heinz Field, 1 o'clock kick. Finally, another 1 o'clock kick. We're not going to have many of those down the stretch. And still, so it's going to be a pretty typical day. Let's go over some news first before we get Bryan on here. Let's talk about the injury report. This was a weird report. I did the podcast. It's weird because on Wednesday they didn't actually practice. They didn't have an official practice. Everything was an estimation. So everything you see on Thursday, you're kind of like, well, is that accurate? So anyways, Dave, why don't you go over and read us the injury report and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, and I'm going to confess this to our podcast listeners that no sooner did I publish Wednesday's injury report article than I realized the fine print of they were just a walkthrough and it wasn't an actual practice. It was estimated. I'm like, oh no, I got to change all this. So, but I mean, it still was a good indication Wednesday, but today was really the day. And there were two players that did not practice. And they're polar opposites, in my opinion. One was Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger, did not practice on Thursday. I don't see any red flag here at all because generally Ben does not throw for 3 days after a game. So that would put him, because normally he wouldn't throw on a Sunday game on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. So therefore, resting the arm, making sure he's good. Doesn't mean he's not there running through stuff, in the meetings. But with a Monday night game, that would put him on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Yesterday, I even said I expected him to not practice today. I really did. And he didn't. So I'm not worried about that. The other one is Chase Claypool with the toe. And you did the article for the website that ran Thursday morning about how the good news is it's not season ending. I mean, he had an MRI and everything. But the bad news is he's week to week. Some people are like, oh, no Chase Claypool. I'm not thinking he's playing in this game at all.
No.
The question is he going to miss beyond this game? So that's the two players that didn't practice. So you're with me on that one. You think the question isn't is he going to play in week 10? The question is he going to play in week 11, in my opinion.
Chase Claypool?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I probably think he's out both games, to be honest with you. If you have a toe injury that is severe enough, you need an MRI, then you're probably looking at a couple weeks out. I mean, they say week to week, but I think it's a couple weeks out.
Yes. So that's just something to keep in mind. I know a lot of people are seeing if he's going to play this week. I'm putting it at an extremely low percentage. Extremely low. I look for him to be ruled out tomorrow.
Agreed.
Now, let's hold off getting to the new names. To just get there was 4 other players that were listed on Wednesday who were projected as if they would have been on the injury report. Those players it was projected that Ebron would have been limited. And guess what? Well, guess what? The unthinkable just happened. Justin Tucker just missed a kick from 48 yards. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Still 3-0?
Still 3-0.
Okay.
So back to this. Eric Ebron was listed that he would have been limited on Wednesday. They thought he was full today. So Ebron might be back. And for those of you saying, oh, do we want Ebron back? Hey, that's a TE2. And if Chase Claypool's out, play him outside.
Put him in the slot.
Put him in the slot. Don't line him up as an inline tight end.
You have 2 outside receivers in James Washington and Deontay Johnson. So if you can have Ebron in the slot, you could still have Freiermuth as your primary tight end if you're running a 1 tight end set. You can put him in the slot if you want 3 receivers. Trust me, there's versatility there that's valuable.
That's what I honestly, if Claypool's out like I expect, that's what I would love to see them do with Ebron. Basically play him as a wide receiver. Play him as the Chase Claypool because they're both big and everything like that. Now, I don't know that he has the speed of Claypool, but let's not go there. All right. There was 3 other players that was listed Wednesday on the injury report but as full participants, they were estimated. And they were all mentioned by Coach Tomlin on in his press conference on Tuesday. So that's probably why they ended up there. And it was Robert Spillane with an ankle, Cam Hayward also with an ankle, and Isaiah Buggs with a hip. Well, Buggs was a full participant today. Spillane and Hayward, they were limited. I'm not surprised with Cam Hayward. Sometimes he's limited on Wednesdays anyway.
Yeah.
And this is like being a Wednesday, even though it's the second practice. So that one doesn't surprise me. Spillane, that's interesting. We'll have to see how that plays out tomorrow. The big deal is the two new ones. The two new ones, two starting rookies. And that is one, Najee Harris and Kendrick Green. Both end up on the injury report as limited. It's Harris with a foot, Green with a hamstring. You don't know if these were kind of, bumps and bruises from the game and you're easing them back in, or maybe they thought they were fine and they injured them during practice. You never know with these limited designations that it's somewhere in between those two things. And we're not really going to get an indication unless another report comes out until tomorrow's injury report.
That's exactly what you're having to wait for. Well, let me ask you this: which concerns you more, Najee or Kendrick?
Najee.
I agree.
No, because when he has filled in, now granted he hasn't started, but when J.C. Hassenauer has filled in this year, when Kendrick Green was out a little bit in game, he's done well. So I don't know that J.C. Hassenauer is a better center, but I think filling in at center, he could come out there and show what he can do. Behind Najee, we kind of know what we got. Steeler fans know what's there, and there's a reason Najee Harris was drafted in the first round, and the other guys on the team weren't. So that's the one.
You have to think about the
long
game too, though. You have to think about the long game. If Najee Harris has a foot injury that might be aggravated by playing. And they say, and this is, if I was a coach, what I would say to the team staff, medical staff, is if he takes a week off, will it be better?
Mm-hmm.
And if they say, look, like this thing might linger, I don't know. Then, of course, you play him if it's going to be something that's going to linger. But if it's something that could be breast, I don't know. Let's bring in Bryan Anthony Davis. What's up, Bryan? How's it going?
Hey, fellas. Thanks so much. And I tell you what, it still feels good, and I'm thrilled about this weekend with the Steelers. I don't care how you make the cake, as long as it tastes good, and this cake still tastes good because it's the 5th win of the season against 3 losses. So, woohoo!
There you go, Bryan. To catch you up, we were talking about the injury report and all the names on that, and we're trying to kind of decipher that. Dave, you wanted to say something about Kendrick Green or Najee Harris, or nothing?
What's that?
I said you look like you were going to say something as I brought Bryan in.
No. I was saying hi to Bryan. That's what I was doing.
Very good.
I was waving to Bryan.
All right. Now, Dave, I'm going to ask you to read about the new practice squad player.
Okay. Yeah, because I was going to say, when it comes to the Lions injury report, I don't know really.
They're coming off a bye. They're
coming off a bye. They should have, other than running back Jamal Williams hasn't practiced the last 2 days. Other than that, but it's the DeAndre Swift show anyway.
Yeah.
The new player. This was something I'm like, oh, okay, let me write this article real quick. When the Steelers add another player to the practice squad, oh yeah, no big deal, blah, blah, blah. The more I started looking at this, I'm like, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. The Steelers added, let's see if I can get the name right. You're making me do this because I can't pronounce it.
I can't get it right either.
It's Jacob Tuioti Mariner. It's hyphenated last name.
On Let's Ride, I just called him Mariner.
You should see the middle name. His middle name. You ready? This is going to be funny. His middle name is Gadinato. No joke. It's double arigato, Mr. It's like 50 letters long.
Nailed it.
It's crazy. I nailed it. But he was released by the Falcons on Tuesday. He was undrafted out of UCLA, spent a year on the Falcons practice squad in 2018, was on their practice squad in 2019, got called up in November, played in 8 games, started 1, had a forced fumble. 2020 played all 16 games, 31 tackles, had a sack, had a forced fumble, had 3 fumble recoveries in there, and 5 quarterback hits. He's a guy that was a defensive tackle that slimmed down and moved to outside linebacker. is what he is. This year, so far, he had played in, I'm pretty sure, every one of Atlanta's games. Did they have an early bye? They were like bye week number 4, weren't they? Either that or he didn't play in week 4. But I think that was their bye week. But he played in every game for them so far this season. But he wasn't getting like week 1, he had 35% of the snaps. Other than that, he was lower. Has 2 sacks on the season. So right now, out of everyone, all the outside linebackers on the Steelers roster, he has the second most sacks behind TJ Watt for the 2021 NFL season. But was kind of surprised that they could get someone like that. You're talking about I'm assuming that they're going to have him as an outside linebacker rather than an undersized defensive tackle. You're talking about a guy that they could be calling up and having some outside linebacker depth that has some experience in the NFL. So I thought this was kind of interesting. We reached out to someone from the how do you say they're the Falcoholics?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That they said they were really surprised that he was released because they thought he was, an up and comer, a hard worker, a good locker room guy. Their only explanation was that he just wasn't a scheme fit for them anymore. Other than that, they can't figure out why he was released. So we'll see what happens.
We shall see. I want to ask you guys about the practice squad, guys. I mean, some of my thoughts are like you have someone like Carl Joseph on your practice squad.
Yeah.
How bad is he that he can't even find some type of role on this defense? They clearly need help in the secondary at some levels. Is he not better than Arthur Millette in certain packages? Like, Brian, what are your thoughts on these practice? I mean, until Taco Charlton got promoted recently, it was the same thing with him. You have this talent on the practice squad. I know it's your taxi squad, but my gosh, if it's better, why don't you use it? What do you think, Brian?
You know what? The practice squad changed, and it changed in 2020 when you started seeing the Wendell Smallwoods and you started seeing veterans on there because you could never do that before. And with that change, now it's a chance to pick up a guy and get an extended look at a player. So you basically, it could be in some places, it could be a 3-week tryout. It was for Taco Charlton. It's a long tryout, and then when you're ready for him and you need him, you could bring him up. And if you don't feel good about him, you don't. So we saw Carl Joseph on the roster for I think 1 week.
Yeah, he was a call up.
1 week he dressed and he played, but he hasn't in the minds of the team. And I talk about this all the time. It's what happens in that practice bubble, and the bubble will tell all. And what happens there doesn't stay there. You stay on the practice squad, but the word gets out and they start doing some other things. So Carl Joseph has not passed his test yet. And that's the best thing that I can guess on this whole thing. Now, as far as bringing up another guy, I'm not going to try to pronounce it. So I'm just going to say BTR, meet JTM. And that's what I'm going to call him. It's JTM. If you've got JOK in Cleveland, you could have JTM right here in Pittsburgh. So, I mean, I haven't had a chance to look into this guy, but I love the practice squad right now. And I like the fact that you could have an extended look with these guys because Taco Charlton took time, and now people are loving number 98. And check this out. I've got my Taco Charlton jersey now. I've got my 98.
And so, Vince Williams, don't lie about it.
Well, I'm not going to show you the back.
Just like your Mike Mitchell jersey. He said it was a Joe Hayden. That was a Mike Mitchell.
All right. But you know what? So I'm loving the way that they're using the practice squad. And I hope these rules continue because I think it works for teams. And it's really weird that you go ahead and you cut a guy like JTM, who the Falcoholics said that they liked, but you could put him back on the practice squad. But the thing is, you could get poached off the practice squad too. So it's a really interesting situation. But for the first time, I look at practice squad, signings, and I get excited. In the past, when you sign a guy to the practice squad, okay, we'll see. We might never see this guy. One more thing about bringing in a guy from the Falcons. You had a guy with 3 names that you brought in from the Falcons before. he pared down to 2 names when he got here, but Roosevelt Nix Jones was the first cut on that season of Hard Knocks, and all the players were stunned. Pittsburgh picks him up, and a year later, he's a stud for that team, and he actually got a Pro Bowl. So it's really interesting. Another team's trash is a team's treasure.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
Ahead,
can I say one more thing, though?
Absolutely.
For this player to sign with the Steelers practice squad, you'd have to, well, first of all, he had to clear waivers. So, that's, I'm not surprised with that. But I bet you the Steelers weren't the only ones that were looking into him. I'm wondering if they're saying, hey, we're going to put you on the practice squad, but you're going to have a chance to get on this roster if you come in here and show us what you can do. And I mean, that's kind of the same thing with Tuska. Is that, if however you say it, if that's who's on there? He started off with the practice squad, got called up, showed that he was a better option than Jameer Jones, and that's what the Steelers
wasn't that also, was it Anthony Miller, the wide receiver, who chose he was going to go to Jacksonville?
Yeah.
And then changed his mind based on Juju Smith-Schuster's injury and said, I'm going to go to Pittsburgh. It's a better team. I have a better chance of playing. And our own Felicia in the live chat said that he tweeted that sounds like he's playing with Chase Claypool out. I could see him being promoted.
Yeah.
So that's
absolutely.
There's a lot of people that have been asking to see him, and so this could be his opportunity. I mean, you think about the wide receivers. I mean, you could always bump someone if Claypool comes back and he's playing well. Shoot, I mean, who's it? Cody White.
Cody White.
Bump Cody White, and he'd play clear waivers, and you get him back on the practice squad. So, okay. The headline title of this podcast is about why the Lions game is not necessarily a trap game. Now, a trap game is, let's define a trap game. Brian, you give your definition first.
I think a trap game is for a team that is playing really well and they're cruising and they go up against a team that they're looking past them because they've got maybe a rivalry game or a big game coming up and they blow it. And a great definition in 2021 of a trap game was the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Buffalo Bills, which ended up 9-6 in favor of the Jaguars. So nobody picked that.
In your trap game, do they have to have that game that they're overlooking the opponent? Because I think the Buffalo Bills play the Jets this week. I don't think that's like a...
Yeah, I mean, it's not... It's
no,
not.
You could have been lulled to sleep by your next couple games, if you know what I mean.
But that's something that does happen.
No, it does. I just didn't know if that's in your criteria.
No, it's not in my criteria, but that's a good bit of the time it is. Okay. But just the fact that you're overlooking a team, let's pare it down to that, because they weren't afraid of the Jaguars, and there's really no reason to be. I mean, just like this, if you look at Detroit, they haven't had a win all season. But remember, those guys are hungry for that first win. Jacksonville was definitely hungry for a big win. And like Dave says, they get paid the same. They all get paid.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, Brian. So far in the Steelers, 8 games they've played, have they had a game that you felt was a trap game?
Not necessarily, because a lot of people thought that Cincinnati was a trap game, but they proved that it wasn't. A lot of people thought the Raiders could be a trap game, but they proved that that wasn't. Another part of a trap game too is also winning the week before by like Dave's been talking about all week with this. If the Steelers beat the Bears 48-3, this could definitely be a trap game here, because you just came off a huge win. Or in the Steelers' case, the Bears could have ended up being a trap game because they had an emotional win against the Cleveland Browns 15-10. Even though they didn't blow them out, you come off that huge win, and then you have I'm going to call him a ho-hum opponent that doesn't strike the fear into you when you look at the schedule. But those guys in that locker room, they're coming into town and they're playing for keeps. They're playing for their jobs. They're playing for their NFL life in some cases. The coaching staff are playing for their lives.
That's a good point. I'm not disagreeing with anything. I was just asking for clarification. Dave, you don't believe in trap games. I know this. But yes or no?
I don't believe that they're as big of a deal as what I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm just saying I don't think that it's to the level that the players would be that way.
So what would your definition of a trap game be?
Okay, well, the problem is I gave a definition of a trap game, and probably it fits a better definition of what would be called a letdown game. Now, I don't know if a letdown game and a trap game would be the same thing. Part of what would make a trap game is that it's a team in which you're heavily favored against. Because you can have a letdown game against a team that you're not heavily favored against. You just don't play as well the next week. But to me, a trap game is a letdown game against a weak opponent. Because a letdown game is when you either A, win a big game that you're not supposed to because you win in an upset. You don't have to win by much, but you upset a team, especially if it's someone like in division or a rival or someone like that, or you win a game by a huge margin, like Bryan mentioned. If you take that and then lead into the next game, and it's against a team that is considered one of your more inferior opponents, that would, to me, be a trap game. I don't think this is one because it didn't play out that way this past week. We all know that a lot of people weren't happy with the Steelers win. But let's not get into that. We've talked about that on a lot of podcasts. But they did win, but it wasn't that big win where you were really confident with everything that you were doing. It's almost like, oh, we've got this put together. And then you don't, and then you kind of take that for granted the next game. That's what I think. And that's part of the reason why I'm really glad. I would prefer the Steelers come in off of a closer game this past week. So they have to be like, oh, we have things we need to fix and work on. If they would have blown out the Bears, then I think this is set up to be what the definition would be of a trap game.
Is this all just fan talk, though?
Yeah.
Like in reality, is this all just fan? Yeah. I mean, this is an honest question. Like, as if there ever been, we know the losses. We can talk about Bruce Gradkowski at Heinz Field. We can talk about Mike Glennon at Heinz Field. We can talk about a bunch of other games. You can go on the road if you want to go to the many trips to Oakland and losing to the Raiders when you shouldn't. Is this really, though? I don't feel like any NFL player has ever, even after retirement, said, oh yeah, we were totally just taken that we took them for granted. We thought we were just going to roll up. Bryan, you don't think that's the case, do you?
I think it's 80% manufactured by talking heads and us. It probably is. You know what? My job today was to come up with a headline. And hey, it's a good discussion point. Thrown in the word trap
even
game.
If the discussion is no, it's not a trap game.
That was the question. Could it be a trap game? Does a trap game exist? Well, Steelers Pittsburgh says absolutely not. So we should shut down the podcast right now because somebody in the live chat is saying, hey, it doesn't exist. But Steelers Pittsburgh disagrees with me a lot, and I respect his comments. So I don't have a problem with that. But here's the thing. Yeah. It does work though, Jeff. It does happen, guys.
Oh, it happens
because
I'm just
you have a situation. Dave Schofield talks about a game he went to all the time, and I know he's going to be talking about Mike Glennon, 2014 against the Buccaneers. That the Steelers team. I mean, they I know they lost the week before, but they really should have handled that team. They were big favorites. And a lot of times we've seen when the Steelers are double digits favorites or 7.5 like they are this week in a game they're supposed to win. I think, and we've talked about this, all of you're not admitting it now, but all of you will say, hey, Steelers teams under Mike Tomlin, they play down to their opponents. Now, I don't agree with that. However, there are times when you have a team that you should definitively beat and you don't. Because on paper, you should beat them. We know you don't play the games on paper, but headlines, bulletin boards, they mean a lot to another team. My gosh, Josh Allen last year, he made a big deal. He made a bigger deal out of the Juju TikTok situation because he said, yeah, that fired us up. That's why we won. I mean, he didn't say it exactly like that, but oh yeah, we definitely noticed that and we were playing harder because of it. Stuff like that, when you're an underdog, you don't think that this was a team that started off the season 11-0 last year. They ran into the Bills. had a letdown. They ran into the Washington team the week before, had a letdown. Then they're like, all right, everything's gonna get right because they're playing Ryan Finley and the Bengals, and they're looking at who they have past that, and they completely blew that game. It could be called a trap game or a letdown game or whatever you want to call it. But what happened is they played down to that opponent. And it happens sometimes. So that's where the trap game comes in. Is it a manufactured name? Yeah. We got to do that kind of stuff. And there's so much more manufactured. But you know what? It happens when teams, they're never going to admit it, Jeff. But they'll say, yeah, we could have prepared better for that. Mike Tomlin says in his press conferences, we could have prepared better.
Yeah. Let me ask you all this question. And it's kind of a follow-up. So this is a paper thing. This is something we do on paper. We look at stats, we look at standings, we look at things like that, and we say the Steelers should do whatever. So what is the difference? There's another aspect or terminology, verbiage that's used on the sports landscape a lot in regards to something else on paper, and that would be a get-right game. So my question is, what's the difference between a trap game and a get-right game?
Me.
Dave wants to go first. Gabe, go ahead.
It's all in how you play. It has completely result dependent.
Hold on. No,
this game could be both.
I know it could be both.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about the lead up. So yes, it is result dependent. But the get-right game, there's people that'll say there was a time where they would have,
the only difference.
where they would have said, this week against Detroit is a get-right game. The Steelers need to get right. Well, what's the difference? Everyone's saying it's a trap game. What's the difference? It's the same Detroit team. It's the same Steelers team right now. What's the difference?
It's all in fan and media narrative. Completely.
But is the narrative is the narrative from where they're coming from? Meaning, is it how they played the prior week? It's not has anything to do with...
Exactly. It's how you play the prior week and how you do in the game. So to me, this, if you're going to classify of it having to be something, this would be more of a get right game that they have each, and it has a chance to be this. It has a chance to be a trap game, meaning if the Steelers lose it, you call it a trap game. This has a chance to be a get right game, meaning if the Steelers win and cover, it's a get right game because of what happened the week before. Even though the Steelers won, it's all in how you feel that the team performed, and I've said this a bunch, is that teams don't always play the same. If you took two teams and had them play each other 4 straight weeks, I would be surprised if any team would go 4-0 against another team, just because you play differently. Now, sometimes it's based on you just have a better matchup, so maybe that could happen, but you just don't always play as well. That's why it's any given Sunday. So the Steelers have a chance to come out and play well, play a complete game, because I know that's something a lot of people want. They're like, the Steelers aren't playing, and when I say a complete game, I mean 4 solid quarters. It's like they're a tale of 2 halves and all these other things.
I'd say Cleveland was pretty close. So I'd say Cleveland game was pretty close to a complete game for me, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, even when they upset the Bills in week 1, we called that a tale of 2 halves. They didn't score in the first half. So you've got all these different things and all these different narratives. And it's for us to talk about and for us, the fans, as enjoy and have our opinions and this, that, and the other thing. So, and that's just how it is. But if you needed to put a label on it, I would say this game would be closer to a label of a get right game, because it's coming off of what happened last week. But now, if they would have been underdogs against the Bears and won by 2 points, you'd call it a trap game. You know what I'm saying? So it's crazy.
The more you talk, as these thoughts come to level, it turns into, and Brian's got it. He's got the bottle. It comes down to optimism and pessimism.
Yeah.
It's, what do you see happening? Go ahead, Brian. Use your little, you've got your visual there. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it's the same thing. This could be half full. This could be half empty. This could be a trap game. This could be a get right game. It's whatever your personality is as a fan. Hey, you could be a pessimistic fan and love this team. I have no problem with that, because that's your personality makeup. That's fine. You can make apologies for this team. You could trash this team, but understand that you're all here and you're not going away next week. And if you keep on trashing the team and you don't like the team and they frustrate you, and it's making your blood pressure go up, guess what? Clifford the Big Red Dog is in cinemas this weekend. That might be a better Sunday for you.
Is it really?
I have tickets to go tomorrow.
I'm not surprised, and I love it.
Oh my gosh!
I got three kids. My youngest, he can't. He doesn't even know we're taking him. He wants to see it so bad.
But you know what? I can see it now. Dave walking out with black and gold, wearing shorts on, wearing his hat, going out of Clifford the Big Red Dog, going, "That was awesome."
That's what I'll do. No joke. I'll be wearing wear a Steelers shorts and everything.
And I love it.
You called it. Are you going to be there to take my picture, Brian? I'm sure, because you know it's going to happen. So, oh man.
All right, so we're at the
super
halfway
chat?
point. We will on the part 2. So we have a super chat to get to right at the beginning of part 2. We're going to talk about some over under. We're going to give our predictions as well as more about the Steelers. So if you're watching live on Facebook or YouTube, stay tuned. We're not going anywhere. Otherwise, on audio side, head over to part 2. We'll be right back. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to part 2 of the Steelers preview. I'm Jeff Hartman, senior editor behind thesteelcurtain.com. Joining with me, as always, Dave Schofield, Bryan Anthony Davis, the triumphant trio. We want to get this super chat here. It's a good talking point. Occam's Ox says it's $4.99. He says, like I said on the SCO show, no such thing as a trap. The Steelers are always going to get an opponent's best game. Teams have Pittsburgh circled. Do you think that? Well, let me ask you this. What other teams are there that get that same amount of response from the opposition? It's not just the Steelers. Give me one, Dave.
The previous year's Super Bowl champion.
Okay, so if they're playing Tampa Bay this year, that would be circled.
Or even the Super Bowl teams. Both teams in there. You're still going to get that.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Brian?
If you play Tampa, you play Kansas City, you're going to circle that. Don't think Steelers fans circle the Kansas City game. It's the day after Christmas. It's going to be a good one.
What about you, Brian? What do you think?
Dave's right, and I'll throw in the 3 other teams in your division. I don't care who you are, but that's a game you circle. And then there's the team that's always been there in the past. A team like, do teams still circle the Patriots? Possibly.
I think Dallas would be circled on everyone's
for
calendar.
a Steeler. No, and even for the Steelers specifically, because of that classic rivalry.
But it's the Cowboys. Like I feel like any NFL team, if you're playing Dallas, it's the Cowboys, it's the star. Whether you're home or away, you want to win that game. I feel like the Packers are kind of like that too. You have these legendary organizations,
because the Steelers fall in that category.
What normally follows those legendary organizations? Primetime games, nationally televised games, whether it's Jim Nantz and Tony Romo doing the 4:25 kickoff that's on almost every single CBS TV station in North America, whatever it is, those follow those. So is there anyone we're forgetting? Dave, go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to say, think about it. When you play one of those teams, you circle it on your schedule simply because it's that team, if that game's in October or later, it could be flexed. It could be because you're playing the Steelers or you're playing the Cowboys or you're playing the Packers. And now more recently, I would say the Chiefs over the Patriots because it's whoever's the big teams out there. Or if you're playing the Buccaneers because they won last year.
And I think Buffalo becomes a circled team and possibly Tennessee.
They're getting there. Now, I don't know if you'd have circled them at the beginning of the season, but mid-season, if you still got them on the schedule, you would do it now.
Yeah. And I think you do.
The one thing I've realized this season is how much I hate Tom Brady almost more than I did the Patriots. That's crazy. I think the Patriots now are just kind of like, they're not a team. Like I don't like Bill Belichick, but it was Tom Brady that I hated. And it wasn't, I hate him, but gosh, he just beat the Steelers so many times. It was annoying, but I don't mind. The Patriots are like, it's another AFC.
Hey, Jeff.
Okay.
Go ahead, Brian.
Dave, I'm sorry because this is stupid.
Go for it.
But Jeff, Bill Belichick yourself before you wreck yourself. That's all I'm going to say.
I'm sorry. Did you see that video of him? Did you see that video of him on social media walking in with the one pant leg up? Oh my goodness! It was hilarious.
I didn't see the video. I saw a picture.
Yeah, there's a video of him walking by.
But actually, I do have something to go along with that. And I will say this: if you're a longtime Steeler fan and you've been around this team for a long time. Jeff, you have, but you do not have much experience with Chuck Noll.
No, none.
If you're a fan of Chuck Noll, then you have no reason to hate Bill Belichick because they're probably the same guy. They really are. They remind me, I mean, they could be brothers in my mind. The only thing is Chuck Noll coached the Steelers, but he wasn't a warm and fuzzy guy. And there were times that the Steelers lost draft picks.
I was gonna say he skirted the rules himself.
Yeah. And he wasn't afraid to go up against that line. And it's one of those things. And here's another thing. The Steelers ushered in the steroid era in the NFL, and they had a lot to do with it. So, you could look at how much you hate the Patriots and Bill Belichick and love the Steelers, but I hope I'm not messing this thing up. But
no, it's I think Dave's laughing at the same comment I am. Is it Steelers freak, Dave?
Yes.
I'll put it up. It says the only thing missing from Belichick's wardrobe was the pee stain in the front of the sweats.
Okay, that's awesome.
That's how bad it was. He's not.
You know what? I'm out. But you know what? Really, they're the same guy, and Chuck Noll gets a lot of respect in history. Bill Belichick will get a lot of respect in history. So I agree with you on the Brady thing because Brady has become more grating over the years, and he's still more grating in Tampa Bay right now. I was rooting for them at the beginning of the Super Bowl, and then I quit. I'm like, all right, I'd rather the Chiefs win again.
I don't know.
So I was going to get back to the super chat question,
sure,
because what that was in response to when he brought that up on the Scobro show was talking about Coach Tomlin had I think I mentioned it, where Coach Tomlin had said that day. Well, first of all, the whole notion of the trap game, Coach Tomlin said there are no FCS teams, there's no homecoming games. I really like that quote. But the other thing that he said was when they asked, "Oh, could you get? Are you ready for some trick plays or other thing from the Lions since they're 0-8 and kind of desperate?" And that's when he's like, basically said, "We're the Pittsburgh effing Steelers," saying we expect that every week from everybody because of who we are. And that's exactly what Hawkins was talking about. They circle that game. You're going to get those kind of things simply because you're the Steelers.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%. So let's do some over under. You all ready for that? What's up, Brian? What's up?
Yeah.
I'm bringing it up because I don't know what this is, but I love it. Pinot Bourdon, you'll be on the show next week instead of me. Let me know when you want to be here. And once again, as usual, I don't know what I'm talking about.
At least you spelled your name correctly.
So I tell you what,
this time.
Oh yeah. Not a lot of people do. So Pinot, I will go ahead and send you the podcast schedule. Let me know when you want to get started.
Gee, are you okay tonight, Brian?
Brian,
you're a little sensitive with the.
It's not sensitive. It's like, I mean, look, I wouldn't be here if I didn't know at least a little bit of something.
I don't know anything.
Yeah,
I just like talking about the Steelers.
Yeah,
I know what time we start.
Yeah. And I know this is all
hard to get into the show.
This is all stemming from the Chuck Noll thing, and yeah, guys, he go back in history. He lost draft picks, and there's a reason why.
Yeah. Well, and by the way, steroids were legal back then. I don't want people to think like if you didn't know about the steroid thing, like those were legal. Those were not illegal at the time. Just like HGH wasn't illegal until the early 2000s. So this Terry Bradshaw used steroids. It wasn't to get jacked. He wasn't jacked. It was for recovery. It helped you recover from injuries faster.
Yeah, and I'm not hating on the team. I'm just telling you that Belichick and Chuck Noll remind me of the same guy a lot, and they're both big winners.
Well, and if you read, like I said, Their Life's Work, which is a great book, they talk about Chuck Noll a lot, and him and Bradshaw, their relationship, goodness gracious, was that grueling. And you hear more from Tom Brady as he has left New England, and it's very similar. I think that's a good comparison. All right. Anyways, you all ready for a little over under?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm leaving Najee Jerome Harris off of the over under today because I don't want to predict anything if he's not even going to play. So I didn't even include there's no Najee Jerome. So we're not doing it. But I do think Ben's going to play. So let's do Ben Roethlisberger attempts. I'm setting it at 31.5. Dave, what do you think?
Under.
Even without Najee, okay.
I'm still thinking Najee's playing.
I'm hoping that Najee's playing. I'm hoping.
I'm still going. I'm still going with Najee playing. So that's why I'm saying it's under.
Bryan, 31.5 over under.
I'm going to say over. I think he passes the ball a good bit.
Okay. Ben Roethlisberger touchdowns. BTR TDs 2.5 is the line. Dave, over under.
Under.
Okay.
Might be two, maybe just one or two.
All right, Bryan.
I'm going to say over with 3.
I'm going to go over as well. Ben Roethlisberger yards passing 292. Dave, over under.
Under.
So you're thinking it's a ground game. Bryan.
No, I'm thinking the Steelers don't throw it a lot and don't get a lot of yards whenever they're ahead. So I'm hoping they're ahead the whole time. That's
like
hope.
I said, you're thinking it's a ground game, which is fine.
Yeah.
Bryan, over under on 292.
I'll actually say, probably around 280. So I need to go under.
I'm going to go under too. I think around 280 is a good spot. How about the Steelers defense sacking the opposition, in this case, Jared Goff? I have the line set at 3.5. 3.5 sacks. Dave, over under.
Let's see. They've been sacked on the year 23 times. So that's just under 3 sacks. So you said it at 3.5. 3.5.
The hook was in there.
Ooh. Let's play this get right style. Let's go over.
Okay, Bryan.
I'm actually going to say the Steelers sacking the quarterback. I'm going to say under, because you take TJ Watt away from this game and you've got nothing.
Is TJ Watt not playing?
Why are we taking TJ Watt away from
No, I'm just saying that last week. All right, I said that wrong, but what I got on my head is you take TJ's production away from this game.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
We got nothing else.
Brian.
Is there an injury I don't know about?
just to my mind. Yeah.
Were you writing that article? Or?
Yeah, well, you know what? Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
I know what you mean now. That makes sense.
All right. I'm going to go with the over. I think they have a good game. Jared Goff is one of the few quarterbacks that they'll face that is not mobile, and that's the perfect target. So you think about Baker Mayfield, all these other quarterbacks. Tyler W says $5 billion. I like that number. All right, let's
go. Tyler, I think you're going to the same game as me later this year. We're going to have to that Titans game. We're going to have to make sure we. Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
Anyways, sacks surrendered by the Steelers. Let's go 2.5. Dave, over under.
Ooh, let me pull out my trusty stats in order to see what that would really be. Yeah, they Detroit's got averages less than 2 a game, so I'm going to say 2.5. I'll say under.
Okay, Dave or Bryan.
Let me go with. Let me go over. If we're going 2.5, let me say 3.
Okay, I'm going to go under as well. Let's do Patty Freiermuth touchdowns 1.5. He's been doing a good job recently. Dave, over under.
I'm going to go under. It's hard to go 2 touchdowns 2 weeks in a row.
All right, Bryan.
Yeah, that's tough. But I think he's a focal point now. I'm going to go under because I think the ball's going to be spread around a little bit. I mean, if Claypool's out, and I'm kind of thinking he is, you can see I can see about 8 or 9 catches from Patty F or Freyer Heath, but my gosh, maybe my gut's saying 2.
Yeah, he really could. I'm just going with odds.
You know what? Screw it. Let's go push 2.
And you know what's good? I mean, he catches it when he throws it, and they're going to look for him down there now more too. So it's not a crazy notion.
And he's making combat catches too.
So the line's 1.5. So Bryan, you're saying over with 2?
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. All right, Steelers turning it over. I have it set at 0.5. Dave, over under.
Oh, I better go over. I really want it to be under, but I'll go over. I'll go 1.
Okay. Bryan?
I'm going to say 1 as well, so I've got to go with the over.
Under. Clean game. They don't turn it over.
That would be fantastic.
Lastly, takeaways. 1.5 is the line. Over under. Dave?
Me?
Yes.
Over.
Bryan?
Over. They're going to be on the plus side again.
Gosh, I hope so.
Well, if we are going to break this down to interceptions, I'll say none. So you better get some strip sacks and some get to cracking, because I don't think they're picking. So I'll go over, but you know what? I don't see them really doing it. I don't think that they're a takeaway team right now. So I'm going under.
They only have 3 interceptions on the entire season. So, and I think 5 fumble recoveries, Dave? Is that the number?
Oh,
Because they have 8 total.
They have 8 takeaways. Yeah. So it would be 5 fumble recoveries.
All right.
And is it just me or is Bryan
yeah,
gone?
Bryan's
okay.
He's circling the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
It's almost like he lost power or something.
Brian Brown, I don't appreciate this. He said over under on Harvin Shanks punts.
He didn't give a number.
Yeah, you got to give a number there, Brian. Let's do 1.5. Presley Harvin Shanks. Dave, you taking over on it. He's good for like 1 a game.
1.5. I'll go under with 1.5.
Okay, I'm gonna go under as well. I think 0. There you go. All right. Is Brian back? He's getting back. Okay. And here we go. And he's back. No one circles the wagons like Bryan Anthony Davis. All right.
like Bryan Anthony Davis's internet connection.
Well, actually, no, I was, if you saw me fumbling around, I was trying to figure out why I was plugging it in, why my battery wasn't. My power cord got unplugged and I didn't even notice it. So
he's back. Okay.
I called it.
Let's do some predictions. And then after predictions, we will get into our trivia and all that stuff. So, Dave, what's the current line? I saw it had gone down, didn't it?
Yes, the current line, according to DraftKings.com, it is at -8. -8. Sorry, had my little elf quote there. And the over/under is 42.5.
42.5. All right, Bryan Anthony Davis, what's your prediction? How do you see it shaking out?
I'm going to say that the Steelers are going to win this game. I am going to go ahead and ignore the 7.5, which hasn't been smart all year, but I'm going to be insane and say, the definition of insanity is not changing anything and hoping it's going to change, but I'm not going to change anything. I'm going to say that they beat the spread this time, and I'm going to go say 27-17.
All right. I like it. Dave, what's your prediction?
My prediction is that the Steelers play better and for longer this week, and they get 1 more point than they did last week to finally get to that 30. I have them going with a bit of an odd score of 30-18.
6 field goals?
No.
Oh, okay.
They'll be either a missed extra point or a go for 2 and get it, or a go for 2 and not get it. Something like that will be thrown in there. It's the Lions. They're going to have to do something.
I bet
unconditional, untraditional, unconditional. What am I saying?
Either one. It's okay. All right, and so I'm going to go Steelers win 24-13. So I think that they do cover the spread, but I will take the under of that bet. I just don't see the Detroit Lions scoring a lot of points. I mean, I could be wrong. I didn't see the Bears scoring a lot of points. They ended up at 27, but 7 of those were via Ray McLeod. So keep that in mind. All right. Let's do trivia. I actually have a trivia question.
Ooh.
Okay. I actually have one tonight. So here we go.
Jefferson.
Yeah. So Bryan Anthony Davis filled in for Blue Check Beck on my Let's Ride Friday podcast. You have to listen to this segment. Did really good, great job. We talked about when you think about the Lions and the Steelers, most people think about what? 1998, Thanksgiving, the coin flip. First question. Who is the official that flipped the coin? I know Brian should know this.
I forgot his name. It's with an L. I mean,
his last name does start with an L.
Gosh, I just can't. I've been trying to think of that all day, actually.
I watched the video this week. I can't remember.
First name is Phil.
I don't have it. Phil.
Phil Luckett. Phil Luckett is the name of the official that flipped the coin. But here's the actual trivia. So we know Jerome Bettis was the one that made the call. And I still remember the hat that he wore. It had like the lightning bolts coming from the logo. There was another Steelers captain on the field. Who was it?
I'm going to say it was Levon Kirkland.
You would be incorrect, but a good guess.
Why? What year was this again?
This was in 98.
The problem is I listened to this game on the radio because on Thanksgiving we used to be out in the middle of the woods in a hunting cabin, so we didn't have TV.
If you don't get it, I'll give you a hint, and you should be able to get it after.
I'm going to say was Carnell Lake still there then? I don't know.
That's probably your best guess.
Yeah, that's who I was going to go with. And we're back.
It was Carnell Lake.
I don't remember the number.
Number 37. Number 37. Carnell Lake was on the field with the bus. And that was it. Those are the two Steelers on the field for that. And you can actually hear Carnell Lake saying, he didn't say that. Like, what are you doing? All right. Anyways, Brian, do you have trivia?
I have a very easy one. Well, it might be very easy, but this is something of legend. So back in the late 1950s, the Detroit Lions traded a player to the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was a quarterback. Did I take your trivia question, Dave?
No, it's always in the 50s or 60s, and it's about a player on the move.
And this guy was a superstar, and he was a quarterback and did well for the Steelers in limited time there. But he made a quote that, all right, by trading me, you guys aren't going to win for the next 50 years. Well, he was wrong because it's been the next 60 years. Who made that comment?
You said this story on Let's Ride, so I'm not going to say the answer. I know it.
Okay. I forgot I did that.
What year did you say it was?
This is my fourth show of the day. I believe 1958 or 1959.
That's when they traded him?
Yeah, they traded this guy. He's a Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm. I don't. That's too old. I can't remember.
It is. It's in the live chat.
I've not even looked at the live chat.
He is currently,
was it Bobby Lane?
He is currently number 22 in Digit Dynasty for the last 4 or 5 years, and not the anymore. Best number 22, and it's Bobby Lane.
Yeah.
We're hoping Najee erases his name.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Dave, your trivia time.
Okay, my trivia is a little bit more recent. We'll have to say that. And I wasted my trivia on Twitter, and it went around. But I do at least want to bring it up in case people in the live chat or listening on the audio side haven't heard this. But this was something that I tweeted out. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they lost to the Lions in that game on Thanksgiving. The last time they had lost to the Lions before that was also a game on Thanksgiving. That was in 1983. The Pittsburgh Steelers have not lost to the Detroit Lions in the Super Bowl era. They are 13-0 against the Lions, going all the way back. Their last loss to the Lions, not on Thanksgiving, was in 1962. So that was just a fun bit of trivia, but I put it out there on Twitter, so I figure you guys might have seen that. So I went a whole different route. One, Trent Jordan Watt had 3 sacks in this game this past week. It was his 3rd game of his career in which he had 3 sacks. Who was the last Steelers player not named Trent Jordan Watt to have 3 sacks in a game, and when was the game?
I'm going to guess Cam. Cam Hayward? Did he ever have 3? Maybe not. Gosh,
I was going to wait for Brian.
He had that year where he had double-digit sacks. That's what I was thinking. Or 2 at sorry.
I'm going 2007 Debo week 5 against Baltimore.
2007 week 5 against Baltimore. That's true, but that's way down the list. There's been people since then. Actually, James Harrison himself has had 3 sack games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times since that game.
Wow.
So yeah. When you said it, that was 2005. Yeah, because he has 5
a simple wrong would have been okay.
Oh no, it wasn't. But Jeff, your Cam Hayward guess was very close. He would be the next person after the person other than Trent Jordan Watt, where he had 3 sacks against the Kansas City Chiefs in week 4 of 2016. But there was a player who had 3 sacks for the Steelers in 2017 on Christmas Day against the Houston Texans. Does that help at all?
Oh, yes. It was Mike Hilton.
It was Mike Hilton. He had 3 sacks in that game.
That's awesome.
Gosh, when you said Christmas and then the Texans, I was like,
yep.
When I think Christmas, I automatically go to the Immaculate Extension.
Yes.
And I forgot about the other Christmas game.
Yes.
Very good. Okay.
Yep,
all right.
There you are.
All right. Good
now, there's
stuff.
a lot of people that have 3 sacks, and a lot of people in the live chat were saying things that were true that they were, but there was just other ones since then. I was just wondering if anyone remembered that Mike Hilton game.
What is the record for the most sacks in a game?
I got it. I almost asked that, but I thought you guys might know it.
I don't know.
You mean for the Steelers, right?
For the Steelers, yeah.
Yeah.
Like in Steelers history, what's the most registered sacks in one game?
Do you know it?
Is it 5?
No.
Higher?
I think it's 4.5, and it's Chad Brown.
4.5. And it's Chad Brown in 1996 against the Bengals.
4.5. I feel like
TJ
could break that.
Yep. There's only what's up?
Go ahead. No, I was just trying to go ahead. Hey, see what you're gonna say. I want to ask.
I was going to say there's only been 6 players for the Steelers that had more than 3 sacks in a game. You want to see if you can name them?
The 6 players that have had more than 3 in a game?
And each person's only done it one time, where they had more than 3. There was 2 with 3.5.
No Chad Brown.
So Chad Brown.
We know James Harrison.
I
would assume, does this go all the way back to like, are they adding like the 70s?
This goes back to 82 when they became official.
Gilden have one?
Gilden did not.
Does Trent Jordan have one?
Trent Jordan, nope. His are only all at 3.
Really?
Maybe he'll do that this week.
I would love it.
Okay.
Come on, Brian, do something. Yeah. How many are there total?
6. You've got 2. Chad Brown, James Harrison.
I don't think Peasy ever got 4.
You sure?
I don't think Greg Lloyd
Joey
did.
Porter?
No.
Joey
Porter had 4
Wow.
against Tampa in 2001.
Kevin Green.
I remember that game.
Was that the Paper Champions game?
I can't remember date-wise.
Brian should know.
Yeah, I believe it was, and that's what sparked the brawl in 2002 before on the Monday Night Football game. So yeah, it was.
Kevin Green?
Nope.
Oh, wow.
Did I say Greg Lloyd? Did you hear me say Greg Lloyd?
And Greg Lloyd was not one.
Okay. Keith Willis,
3.5 in 1983 at Seattle.
one of the most underrated Steelers of all time. I will say that.
How about I give you years for the other 2? The other 2 were 2 that were 4 in a game. You ready? Because Willis and Harrison's were 3.5. You ready? One was 1984 and 1991.
Jeez, that's tough for me.
Let me go with Brian Hinkle.
Territory.
Brian Hinkle?
It is not Brian Hinkle.
Finkel? Einhorn?
That's what I was thinking when you first said that. I'm like, Finkel or Einhorn?
Finkel, Einhorn.
Edmund Nelson.
That is correct. Edmund Nelson.
So we have one left, right?
Yep.
So
Was Edmund Nelson
that had to be
84?
80? Was that got to be 84?
That was 84.
Got to be 84, right? So 91. I'm going to go David Little.
And it was in the last game of the season in 1991.
Not David Little?
It is not David Little.
I'm right. You aren't getting much help from me in 1991.
Are you ready? You ready for me just to give it to you?
Is there any hint you're going to give me? Because I think I'm on the precipice.
Yeah, he played for the Steelers in 1991. What more do you want?
That's a great
It was
hint.
the last game of the season. I mean, I basically told you everything I can.
So it was against the Browns because I think that was the last game of the season.
Yep.
91.
Okay, he went to Purdue. We'll tell you that.
He went to Purdue.
Don't know if that helps.
Jarrell
He was drafted
Williams?
in 1989. That is correct. It was Jarrell Williams.
Jarrell Williams.
Yeah.
I just pulled that off. Purdue gave it to me. Jarrell Williams.
The next thing I was about ready to say is his first name starts with his last name starts with a W and ends with an Illiams. That was my next. that was my next hint.
Boy, he was. he went to the Chargers. He left in free agency. He had a lot of sacks, but 89, 90, and 91. And then he fell off the face of the earth after leaving Pittsburgh.
Yeah. So there you go.
All right.
I'd love to put Trent Jordan in that category.
I would too. Jared Goff's a statue. We can do it. Yeah. All right, Brian, final thoughts. Go ahead.
All right. My final thoughts this week are, man, I'm enjoying this team this year. I'm having a lot of fun. I don't care, like I said, how they win games. It's just something to me that they're kind of an enjoyable team to watch. And I love the personality of this team. And I love the demeanor of this team too. So it all starts with a guy like Cam Hayward. It starts with Ben Roethlisberger. It starts with Trent Jordan Watt. But most of all, it starts with Michael Petaway Tomlin. And I really like the job that is happening with this team. Hey, they started out 1-3. It's 5-3 and right now. And so think about this. If you're a Pittsburgh fan of Pittsburgh sports and you live in Maryland like Jeff, Dave, and I do, there's something that you say all the time. When you have a Capitals fan come up to you and say, yeah, we just won the Stanley Cup 3 years ago. And I just say, hey, let's do some simple math. 5 is better than 1. So I'll take those 5 wins right now, no matter how they were done. And, I'm not too concerned that a month ago it was 1. So with that being said, I love this team, but I want to say something else. Because of Dave giving me an opportunity, I get to go to this game. And I'm really excited to go to this game this weekend.
Shirtless.
And I'm taking my nephew. Now, Jeff actually amended this and saying, wait, no, it's only when he's at home that he's shirtless, because it doesn't work when he's on the road, because they actually won against Seattle and I wasn't shirtless. Yeah. But I'm going to the game with my nephew. He's going to be 15 next week.
It's his first game there, right?
15 on the 21st. No, I took him to the Pat Mahomes game. So we've got to,
right. Okay,
we've got to erase that. Yeah, 6 touchdown pass. I'm like, oh yeah, no, they're going to crush this young quarterback. And then that happened. But I'm really excited. He's my nephew. He's my godson. I only have one sister, so he's my only true nephew on this side of the family. And I'm so excited to take him to this game. And his birthday was actually a week later against LA when the Steelers play LA, but I'm like, dude, I'm not taking you to Los Angeles. So we're going to take Dave's tickets and we're going to go to this game. So if you want to hang out with us before the game,
crew.
Yeah, hit me up. Let me know on Twitter. BTSC, BAD. I think that's an @ not a hashtag. And just let me know where you're going to be. Because we're not hashtagging. So we're gonna go @. So @ me, baby, @ me. I would love a chance to say hello to the people in the Steelers family that don't want to punch me in the face. So there might be 2 of you, and that'd be great.
Brian, as a kid, say you're asking people to slide in your DMs. I'm speaking.
Hey, Insta me.
Insta face.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking of what is that from Talladega Nights? Google me. I can't say the rest of what he says.
All right, Dave, do you have final thoughts, or are we just going to go with this?
I do have some final thoughts. Something I do want to bring up, because they are actually playing right now, is that, and I brought this up in my 3 games to watch article, which is on BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. One of the games was highlighting, looking at last week's game with the Ravens. They've been favored by 6 points or more 4 times this season. And when they've got blown out in one of the games by the Bengals. They won 2 of them in overtime. And the other one they won on a NFL record field goal as time expired. So sometimes teams, just find a way to win. And that's what they're doing. And that's what the Steelers just need to do and continue to try to get better as they go. I'm just saying, let's just have a good time. I just want to enjoy a football game. I really do. I want to see the Steelers just come out there and play Steeler football. You don't have to play a perfect game. You just need to continue to improve week after week, and just keep that trajectory going. Get that 6th win so they at least tie that record that a lot of people were projecting for wins for the whole season.
There you go. All right, for me, I should have said this at the beginning. Shame on me for not, but for all the veterans out there, whether you're serving past, present, thank you for your service. We appreciate everything that you do to keep us to the point where we can sit here and talk about meaningless sports every day. So we appreciate it. Dave, why don't you send us out?
Hey.
We'll see you next week. Getting ready for the Chargers game on the Steelers preview. Take it easy.